Welcome to the City Current Radio Show. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're always honored to bring you inspiring stories, valuable content, stuff that you can use to power the good. We're honored to be kicking it off with our first guest, Jennifer Hill. She is the Vice President of Policy and Programming with Nashville Public Education Foundation. So, Jennifer, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Jeremy, how are you?
Doing well. So let's start. We're going to talk a lot about Nashville Goes to College, but let's start with Nashville Public Education Foundation. You do a lot to raise, obviously, funding to help teachers, educators, leaders, support success. There's so much that goes into it. So give us a little overview for the foundation, and then we'll dive into Nashville Goes to College.
Sure. So we're a 15-year-old nonprofit, roughly about 15 years old, founded to support Metro Nashville Public Schools. And we do that by advancing three goals, really focusing on three things. One is as you mentioned, supporting teachers and leaders in developing schools where children thrive. The second is advancing excellence and innovation in public education. And the third is about identifying and removing barriers to success for students. So we focus on those three goals, which is kind of how we got to Nashville Goes to College.
And so let's dive into Nashville Goes to College. It's a robust website, resource, very, very cool in terms of how you're structuring it and putting it together. But give us a little backstory, because this is powered by First Horizon Foundation. So give us the backstory on what led you to start it.
Sure. So a few years ago, we were looking at the college success rates of NPEF graduates and partnered with First Horizon really to do that analysis, and then to also come up with solutions to kind of increase the college completion rate of students for or NPEF students once they move through. So about 26% of NPEF graduates actually complete a post-secondary degree of some kind. That can be a certificate, a trade school, vocational, 2 or 4 year college experience within 6 years of graduation. And we just noticed that there was some lack of resources for students, particularly first generation students, on how to navigate the college access process, and then getting the support they needed on the back end once they were enrolled to be able to complete that degree. And so we've been partnering with the First Horizon Foundation over the last 2 years to support NPEF graduates in that way. And Nashville Goes to College is one of those ways that we're working to support students.
And so there's a lot of layers. I mean, as you mentioned, it's the financial assistance and understanding how to navigate everything from scholarships, tuition assistance, and those opportunities. It's obviously picking the right fit. And so there are many different colleges in terms of how you lay them out with the technical schools, community colleges, four-year universities, even private versus public. So walk us through the landscape of the different resources and kind of the journey that you take the students on.
Yeah, I would love to. So I think one of the things that's really fun and interesting about Nashville Goes to College is that it actually follows a group of students through the process, and they talk about their personal experiences, and then with family members about how they made decisions around what schools to look at, how they considered financial aid, and all types of issues that would normally kind of present themselves for students and families along the process. And so we really talk about the site, the resource portal is really designed to begin use in middle school. So how do you start to talk about middle school and planning for college with middle school students and families, class selection, trying different experiences that may give you a clue of what you might want to study or courses you might want to take. And then kind of following into the more traditional actual college access experience or counseling experience with how do you determine what a good fit for you is? How do you determine how you might pay for college? What do you write in a college essay? How do you find financial aid outside of individual institutions, awards, merit awards, need-based awards? How do all of those things work? And then we follow that up with a set of skills and resources for students after they've made the college decision. How do you think about going to college? What are the things you need to consider as well? So,
what are maybe one or two things that you think are either tips or kind of hidden gems in terms of selecting the right place to go, the culture fit, whether it's tuition assistance? What are just one or two things that come to your mind as tips of the trade, bits of advice, or hidden gems that people need to know?
I think just looking at what you need out of your college experience in different ways. I think one of the hidden gems is really thinking about there's actually a lot of different ways that you can kind of go about getting your college degree. You could go and take advantage of Tennessee Promise very early and then transfer into a four-year university. And that might be a way to lower some affordability barriers that some of our students face. I think that for some of our students, out-of-state four-year institutions are really good options as well, depending on what your profile, your academic profile is, or your need-based profile is, that those can actually, for some students who think they may only be able to afford a community college experience because that's what they have been told, sometimes can get really exciting financial aid packages from out-of-state four-year institutions. And so it's really kind of looking at the whole landscape and communicating with counselors from as early as possible that you have a desire to go to college. Think about being able to help what you might want to study, and beginning to have those financial conversations with family members really early to see what options might be the best fit.
I know you mentioned that this starts really with middle school. Walk us through the timeline, especially for parents who have seniors or juniors, in terms of accessing it and trying to get them on the right timing to start making sure that they are doing the campus visits and applying. And so in other words, kind of walk us through how far in advance that we really need to be going, especially obviously you mentioned it starts at middle school, but walk us through when it really starts to become important.
Well, I actually think it does become really important in middle school, but I think the more traditional milestones kind of start around that freshman, in the second semester of freshman year, first semester of sophomore year, as you start to begin to think about ACT prep and taking that test. I think also, particularly in some of the ways in which our Nashville high schools are structured with academies of Nashville here, really having a sense of your course selection, that's really important to get a strong foundation in your freshman year so that you can get moved into or apply to the academy that makes most sense for the interest that the interest that you have for career-wise and for a course of study. So I think that kind of second semester freshman year, first semester sophomore year, thinking about course selection and then beginning to prep for college boards, which of course is really interesting in the time of COVID, right?
Yeah.
Some universities are waiving those requirements. It's been hard to get seats to take your ACT and SATs during the time of COVID-19. So yeah.
Well, that's what I was going to ask next is when you talk about the effects of COVID-19, especially on universities that are having to switch online, how does that play a role in everything that you're trying to present as resources?
Yeah, so I think we worked with First Horizon Foundation to update Nashville Goes to College with a COVID-19 section, really focusing on rising seniors and rising college freshmen to communicate very quickly what had changed in the landscape or in the ecosystem that needed to be done. But I think looking forward into the rising juniors and seniors, I think it's going to be a lot about what types of offerings are universities able to make to students? What do online classes look like? What does it mean to be living on campus? The traditional college experience that you and I may have been able to participate in is not what I don't think is going to be readily available to students for the next year or 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, someone was joking, but I think there is truth in the sense that you look at going through a rush or like for sororities and fraternities, you're like, well, that probably is going to have to be online now. And it's like, well, there is some truth to some of that in the sense that there is a lot of uncertainty, but we're navigating it together, all of us trying to figure this out.
Absolutely. And I think, there's lots of conversations in the college access and success space about what it means to take online classes at a four-year university versus what the experience might be at a community college. And I think students and families are going to be facing those types of options as well as decisions around how gap years might play into the trajectory. So a lot more kind of variability in the process than we have seen in probably ever.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. What advice would you give parents who say, my child doesn't really know, like they don't know what they want to do. They don't know where they want to go. They don't know, like they're just kind of hanging on. And I think right now with COVID-19, it creates even more uncertainty around, okay, well, that adds a layer of complexity. What advice would you give them for just kind of helping to navigate and put their child on the best possible path for success?
Well, I think it's interesting that COVID-19, it kind of has opened up this world of virtual school tours that probably wouldn't have been conducted in the same way in a traditional kind of world. And so that really gives students and families a lot of opportunity to experience a lot more universities or college experiences or options than what previously might have seemed within the realm of possibility. So I think that's something, a really interesting, cool thing that an unintended consequence of what we have found in COVID-19. I think also it's just really encouraging students and families to stay in touch with and connect with college counselors and college access mentors through this process. And think in recognizing that online classes in the K-12 scenario will probably are not going to look the same as college classes. And so, you know, for some students, that the thought of attending class at all online is difficult. So trying to stay connected to the network there, and then just really exploit the opportunity of being able to dream really large with virtual tours.
Yeah. And I think for all of us, we're all having to navigate the e-learning, the online learning. And I think for the kids, the faster they can adjust and adapt, it's going to create more opportunities for their growth. And let's face it, we're in a creative economy. And I think, you know, now more than ever, the ability to upskill and learn new things and take advantage of all these opportunities is going to put them in a position for their own success, but also for our community success. Talk about the things that you're looking at, because I know that the higher levels of attainment in terms of furthering education leads to more economic growth, especially for Middle Tennessee and Nashville. That's one of the reasons this is so important. But talk about some of the things that you're measuring and looking at as your success metrics.
Sure. So here in, well, nationally, we anticipate, you know, there are about 60% of the jobs require, future jobs are projected to require some type of post-secondary credential or degree. And so one of the things that we know that this is that even though we have the highest graduation rates the state of Tennessee has ever seen, that our students and our graduates and our citizens and our economy need the type of expertise that happen after the K-12 experience. This is so important. And I think that what we're seeing here, we have a large portion of kind of first generation college goers in MNPS. And so thinking about when we look at how the healthiness of the pipeline or the continuum, we're looking at how many students are taking action towards going to college. So we know about 80% of MNPS students take some type of action to apply for college. And then we monitor how many of those people, students who take an action, actually enroll in college. And so right now for MNPS graduates, about 57% of students actually enroll and show up for that first term. And then we begin to track what it looks like for students who enroll in the first term to persist into the second year. So that means complete a whole year of classes and re-enroll for second year, as all of these are leading indicators for the college completion metric that we are tracking for the city of Nashville. And we have a very ambitious goal of 40% college completion for all MNPS graduates by 2025.
Nice. You have a Hall of Fame event coming up presented by First Horizon Foundation. It's going to be held virtually on September 30th. So talk about this event and obviously the importance for helping to raise funds for your efforts.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Public Schools Hall of Fame is our annual event. It'll be the first time we ever do it virtually, and it really supports. It is our major support for our work in the city, and it looks to honor public school graduates from MNPS who have done amazing work for our community and really lifting lifting our city up, as well as identifying kind of the educators and innovators who, or recognized educators and innovators who are getting the work done every day for our students. It's a really fantastic event, and First Horizon Foundation has been our presenting sponsor. I think this is the third year.
Talk about how we can get the more information, tickets, sponsorships. Where do we go to learn more and obviously be involved in everything you're doing overall?
Yes, absolutely. You can find us at NashvillePEF.org. That's our website. There's information on the Public Schools Hall of Fame coming up on September 30th, presented by First Horizon Foundation. And then also you can link to Nashville Goes to College there as well, and check out the college resource portal.
Well, Jennifer, thank you for all you and your team do. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks so much, Jeremy. I hope you have a great day. Enjoyed it.